I'd like to introduce you tonight to our speaker. It is the wonderful Sabrina Chevannes. I just want to put some statistics in context for us all. We're all here bound by the desire and the wish to develop our careers within the creative industries. We are very fortunate and lucky to have the potential of that opportunity ahead of us. But by its own nature, in its own design, it has deep-rooted inequalities at its core that needs to be shaken and needs to be changed. The Design Council ran a report. Now, this was, to be fair, back in 2018, and we're looking for the next report that's going to basically be updated. But it showed at the time that only 13% of the UK design economy, one of the most thriving parts of our economy, was basically from BAME background. And more than that, if you drilled into those the data behind that, only 17% of the design managers were female. And actually, when you looked at it in terms of UK design leaders, it was 88% dominated by white sort of Caucasian and sort of background individuals, and only 12% in terms of the BAME background in terms of those leadership positions. These are shocking statistics that need to be changed, but they cannot be changed without active involvement from all of us. What we have witnessed in this last year has been a seismic earthquake in terms of the global recognition of inequalities that's been driven by global campaigns around Black Lives Matter and indeed other initiatives. But the only way that we can tackle this issue is by learning and leaning in. And we all have something to bring to this debate. Everyone has learnt experience. And the truth is, in our experience, is best teams come from diverse backgrounds, diverse ways of thinking, diverse ways of problem solving and putting it together. And the reason why we wanted to share our teams is because all of our teams have age diversity, they have gender diversity, they have racial diversity, they have sexual diversity, they have different type, they have neurodiversity as well in the team. So there is great strength in diversity, but we need to really have an open, honest, and authentic conversation about what that really means. And I have great pleasure in introducing to you Sabrina Chevannes. Sabrina and I know each other from various sorts of agency kind of communities. And I think we've developed a really strong relationship based on trust and respect. We're very open with one another over this last year. And I have a huge amount of time and respect for her. She is somebody who has come from a very interesting background you're about to hear. And if any of you have watched The Queen's Gambit on Netflix, you're going to hear a little bit about the importance of chess. But I thought, and alongside with Dan, that it was right for us and our community to listen from the real experience of somebody who's creating a successful agency within the digital and creative environment, but to really hear what it takes to deliver that and what are the honest challenges ahead, so that we can all look at that and we can all be advocates and we can all help to make this amazing and important change that has to happen in our industry. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to the wonderful, the extraordinary, the superb Sabrina Chevannes.
Thanks. Well, it was such an over-the-top introduction, not that wonderful and extraordinary, but thank you. Do you know what's funny? You mentioned the Queen's Gambit. I've not even mentioned chess in my presentation. I so forget that it's like a big chunk of my life. But yeah, I think the background to that is that I used to be a professional chess player, which is quite random. But it has got a significant impact into how I think about things, how I approach things, the strategic approach to business and everything like that. But yeah, I guess if you want to know a bit more about what it's like to be kind of Beth Harmon in real life, that's kind of where I'm at. So if you've watched the show, feel free to ask any questions. But I also do want that. I want to encourage you guys to send messages in the chat, just like if you've got any questions or you've got any stories that you want to share and that you want to talk about, because I feel that that's what it's really important. The whole topic is strength and diversity, and like I wouldn't have been able to be here today had I not had the support around me. And as Richard said, like we've met in various communities. I think that me joining like Agency Nomics and like Agency Collective, all those things are like joining Agency Nomics basically introduced me to a whole world of people. And I don't think I would have survived the whole COVID fiasco without being able to have that support network around me. And people like Richard and all the other people I've met in the network have been so supportive and so incredible that it's helped me obviously overcome adversity and things like that. So definitely that's why, you know, we're trying to be here as well for you guys. And if you've got any questions at any point or any suggestions that you know, scenarios that you're in now or you've been in and you don't know how to handle, feel free to send it our way. I wish I knew the answers of how to handle scenarios before I got to them as well. But what I've got today is a bit of a presentation just to tell you my background and just bring up some of the things that's happened to me, I guess, and how we can tackle it and come out a bit stronger. So I'm going to share my screen. And here's my PowerPoint and pop that into the presentation mode. So hopefully you can see that. So yeah, strength and diversity. Can you just give a thumbs up if you can see that? Okay, all good? Perfect. Right, so I love quotes. Quotes always good, inspirational. Obviously, if you spend all day on Instagram, you'll find loads of great inspirational quotes, but they are fantastic. And there's no one more quotable, I think, than Maya Angelou. In diversity, there is beauty and there is strength. Absolutely. So I cannot imagine a world that wasn't diverse. I live in central London. I live in London because it is such a diverse city. It's amazing, full of culture. I love to travel. I have been to 81 countries. Really sad that I haven't actually been to a new country in the last couple of years, but been to 81 different countries. And if I could, on my bucket list would be to go to every country in the world. That would be one of my life goals. Just because there's a whole world out there of so many different cultures and different types of people, how they live. I find it fascinating. I think it's like insanely important to understand what goes on in the world. So it's definitely diversity is beautiful. And as we're going to find out about the strength. So how it all started, my background is really weird. And I think this is like hearing my background, you probably understand why I sort of found it difficult at first going into the creative world. So I actually went to medical school first. So I thought I wanted to be a doctor. I still find medicine really fascinating. I come from a family of doctors as well, which probably didn't help, but they actually told me that I shouldn't do it. They were like, it's not going to be right for you. They kind of knew. And I was like, no, it's fine. I really want to do it. I want to be a doctor. And, you know, I think probably I was watching too much ER or something like that when I was a kid and I just loved it. But yeah, I think I was inspired. Again, inspiration and role models are key things, what I mentioned. And my brothers are my role models. So they were both doctors. And so I wanted to go to medical school. Started off there, found that I was like super duper entrepreneurial. And I actually decided to start my first company when I was there. I was trying to earn some money. I ended up doing private tuition for exams and ended up basically creating a little teaching agency. So that was kind of my first business. And, you know, when you start a business, what do you need? You need marketing, you need a website, you need all that kind of stuff. And whilst I was already like, you know, had design skills, I was good at Photoshop and all that kind of stuff, I hadn't done anything commercially. I definitely hadn't built a website. And so I obviously hired people to try and do it for me. What I realized was that everyone I hired they weren't very good. This is what was really frustrating. And they didn't understand what I needed to do. Eventually, I ended up deciding to teach myself, which was kind of crazy. And I sort of ended up like somehow teaching myself how to do like design and build my own website in the end of it. And when I did, I was super proud of my own work because it was all me. And I released it to the public and suddenly everyone was like, oh my God, I love your website. Like, you know, please, can you do mine? And then it became a thing. And so like I was doing my friends' websites, I was doing other people's websites. And then I was like, right, I'm going to start charging for this because it's ridiculous. I was doing all this myself. And I started off, so that's for the teaching agency, which I did. And then I started off freelancing. And I started off charging £75 per website. That's what I started off charging. I would design and build an entire website for just £75 because I was just trying to get a portfolio. No one wanted to take me on because I was still too new, and it was a strange market. But I was like, right, I want a portfolio. And I thought, instead of doing this for free, I'm just going to start doing that. So I did that. Built up a bit of a portfolio, and then gradually, obviously, I started charging more and more, and then ended up like leaving the teaching agency. Gladly, someone bought that from me. It was really nice. I could exit, and then went full time into doing design work. So I then started doing, like, I went to Adobe courses, started doing that, and got really into web design, really into UX and the UI. And UX for me was really interesting. I guess it came from the whole analytical background as well, based on data. The whole, I guess that's where chess comes in, I guess, for me, like analysing all that sort of stuff. So got really into that, and freelance so much that I got so many clients eventually, and then sort of decided to turn into an agency. But I think at the time, what I didn't realise was, like, I think the difficult part for me was, like, I was freelancing, and then I enjoyed being my own boss, but at the same time, I also wanted to get the experience of working in an agency. So at some point, I had this kind of decision to make. Like, do I go get a job as a designer or developer in an agency world, or do I try to start things myself? And I think that this is where all the big decisions come in. So I have some barriers to success, all the classics, basically. Time. I was like, well, yeah, why aren't there more hours in the day? I swear that they're, like, you know, you have these days, and I'm sure you guys can relate, where you seem to be like doing so much, but nothing seems to get done. And that's what it felt like for me. I was always sort of like, well, I'm always dealing with clients. I've always got all this stuff on. Like, if at least I was in an agency, I could clock off at 5 p.m. and kind of go home. But in reality, you know, that's also not true. When you start working with an agency, clients come first. You're always still going to end up working quite late. And I think that time was definitely a barrier, and I always put things off. And I thought, oh, I'll do that when I've got more time. Like, you know, I'll start my agency when I've got more time, you know, but that time never comes. This is what you've got to realize. You never end up having enough time to do something, or you never think you're ready to do something. So what I'd say is that if you really love what you do and you really want a career in it, you've just got to make that jump. Because I think if you take that first step's the hardest, right? If you take that first step, then you're already, like, you've already stepped over that line. You then it forces you to kind of take the next step little by little. And I think once you start, then it's much easier. So I think that for me, I was like, right, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to start an agency. And I had zero clue what I was doing, honestly. So I literally was like, right, I'm starting an agency, registered a company, designed my logo, did all that kind of stuff, and just put myself out there, made my own website, and that was it. I had an agency, and then I thought I'd just deal with it later. May not have been the right idea, but at least I was out there and I kind of stumbled my way through. Don't get me wrong, I made tons of mistakes along the way, but each one of those mistakes, if you turn that into a life lesson, then obviously you're learning consistently as well. Money. And I thought, when does desperation kick in? Because again, like, you know, a lot of you guys are students, you know, I'm guessing you're not all millionaires. So you've got bills to pay, you've got people to feed. How can you go for your goal if you don't have money? So you've got, again, scenarios that kick in. A lot of people, you know, want to go for their ideal job, but that ideal job either requires an internship first. And that internship either might be unpaid or very lowly paid, but it's potentially a stepping stone for an amazing career goal. And it's like that worry of being like, well, I need a job that pays me. Like, it's that balance, and it's always going to be a worry. And the same as me, even in terms of agency, I just started it and then worried about money later, hoping stuff would come in. I think what I would say is that in creative world, relationships are super important. Like, they're probably one of the most important things. Like, you know, you just heard from Richard and Mark, who I both know from, you know, different communities. And without those relationships, I don't think that your business can do very well. So if you're concerned about taking a job that's low paid, or perhaps an internship because you think that, you know, you need the money right now, try to think ahead into the future of what those opportunities might be, and you know, what connections you can make at that agency, or what things you can learn and who you can meet, because you never know what that might lead on to. And so that's why I think that people sometimes are a bit narrow-minded in that sort of stuff. Confidence. So you probably like I've heard so much about imposter syndrome over the last couple of years. It's like a buzz term at the moment, like everyone's talking about it, but it's a serious problem. And like, if you suffer from it, it's really, really scary. And confidence is something that I've battled with a lot. And lots of people say they can't tell. I come across as a really confident person, but it's in there. Like, I have imposter syndrome, and, you know, you doubt yourself. And again, lack of confidence is what stops you taking those leaps. And all the different things we talk about in terms of adversity, each one of those little incidents that happens, it chips away at your confidence. And this is what's really scary. And I feel like self-awareness is super, super important in order to be able to battle that. Because, you know, if someone says something to you, if someone, you know, whether they're right or wrong, someone says something about your work that it's not good enough, or, you know, or is someone's just completely judgmental and discriminating against you, even though they're in the wrong, it still chips away at your confidence, and it can still have a detrimental effect on you, in your career, in your performance, in your job, and you start to doubt who you are, and it is a difficult thing. So I definitely suffer with that. And again, it's about how you deal with that and how you can how you get the support from other people too. Oh, here you go. I don't know if anyone can put their hand up if they've seen a TV show called Scandal, because it's like one of my favorite. No, most people haven't even heard of it, which is I find really surprising. Scandal is okay. Who's heard of Grey's Anatomy? Most people have heard of it. Okay, Grey's Anatomy, most people have heard of. Or How to Get Away with Murder. Anyone heard that one? Yeah, okay, so it's the same person who created the show, Shonda Rhimes. She's also, actually, why did I say this one? Because it's new. Bridgerton. Everyone's watching Bridgerton on Netflix, right? Same woman. Like, I love her, Shonda Rhimes. Google her, she's amazing. All her shows are fantastic, all full of drama. I mean, this show's called Scandal, so obviously it's full of drama. It's an incredible show. US politics, that kind of stuff. But the main woman, she's called Olivia Pope. She is played by Kerry Washington, amazing African-American actress. And she obviously faces quite a lot of adversity as a female and, a female person of color in the White House. So this is what's like talked about pre-Obama's as well. So it was kind of all a bit controversial. This is her dad. He always used to grill her, and he always said to her, you have to be twice as good as them to get half as what they have. And when he said this line, it became like, this clip became so controversial, and like it sort of trended on social media, and like Shonda got asked loads of questions about it because they were saying that it was really negative and a bad portrayal because they're a black family, and he was grilling into her like, if you want to be successful, you have to be twice as good as what they were saying white people. This is what they said. And so it became a bit of a racial like debate on Twitter. But for then all the African Americans in America were kind of stepping up saying, yeah, we get it, like this is what it is. But I feel like this applies to not just race, it applies to gender, sexuality, all that kind of stuff, because if you are seen as one of the discriminated groups, you already have that initial disadvantage going into anything. Sadly, that's just life. And so I just thought that quote stuck into my head because you have to be twice as good as them to get half as what they have. As Richard mentioned earlier, the world has massively improved with awareness of everything that's going on, and people are a bit more, open and aware of what's going on. But still, there's you won't be able to change everyone. And sadly, that's the case. And I wanted to obviously bring up some of the other things that people get discriminated against. So what is discrimination? There's a Discrimination Act, I can't remember what year it is now, that was put in, but it changed the way that we kind of go through, like, you know, CVs and job application processes and all that kind of stuff. There's certain questions you can't ask. And these are the 9 protected characteristics. So yes, for me, it's largely, I get, you know, race and gender. That's just kind of what it is. But age, I've also been discriminated against because people think I look younger than I am and assume that I don't have any experience. So then these are the other ones: gender reassignment, being married, which is interesting. So, or in a civil partnership. So that's, I guess, largely in same-sex marriages, but even some scenarios you'll have just being married is a downside in some jobs. Being pregnant and maternity leave, lots of things like that. Disability, race, religion, that's another big one. Sex and sexual orientation. I've heard horror stories where companies, I've been in, like, my offices before pandemic were in a WeWork. So it's a co-working space. We had a private office, but we also had like the co-working areas. So you could sit there and you could listen to conversations. I mean, I wasn't intentionally eavesdropping on people's conversations, but, you know, you kind of absorb what's going on. And I was listening to these guys, like, talking about they were going through CVs, they were hiring, and it was just disgusting the way they were talking. They were like, oh yeah, first thing I do is go through all the CVs and, like, delete all the ethnic names. And I was like, what? And they were like, yeah, that just helps already. Delete all the ethnic names. That's the first thing I do. It cuts it down by like 90%. That's what they said. And they were saying it proud. And the guy was like, yeah, definitely, obviously. And, like, you could see other people just listening and they didn't care. Like, they thought it was like the normal thing to do. And I'm like, that is disgusting. And then that's why I get when, like, we get quite a lot of phone calls or emails from overseas, like, companies who wanted to outsource overseas because we save money. And a lot of them will write to us going, hi, my name's John Smith. Their name's not John Smith. But they've done that because of the immediate discrimination they get by saying that, oh, my name is, like, someone from India, someone from Bangladesh, someone from Poland. Like, all these countries are usually the countries that contact us. And if they've got a name that's clearly, like, from those countries, people then delete their emails or don't want to talk to them. This is what this guy was saying. He was just literally like, yeah, I just delete them. So I get why people change their name and do that, because they want a shot. They want to be able to step in that room first and be able to actually sell themselves for the quality that they are before being discriminated against. Because sadly, a lot of people who have an ethnic name are just going to be deleted from the get-go. And this is what's really difficult. I know a friend who's got a business. This is, again, pre-COVID, when we had an office, and he used to get people coming to his shop, and in the front of staff, he used to have a few black people there, and they used to get really put off. And they said it wasn't very trustworthy. He had lots of feedback. He had mystery shoppers come in and all sorts of feedback and stuff. So he ended up having to move all the black people to the back, at the back, and only keep the white people at the front, which again was really, really bad and shouldn't have to happen. But he felt he needed to do that for the sake of his business. And this guy's a black owner, by the way, so it wasn't like he was discriminating against his own people because he thought he had to do it. And this is horrible. This is stuff that shouldn't happen. And so this is why I want to talk about, like, the problem is there are a lot of people who get discriminated against on a daily basis, and then they make that who they are, and they kind of they just fill it with negativity. They just be like, okay, I'm just getting discriminated against all the time. They don't know kind of what the reason they're getting rejected for stuff is, and they assume that it's because of a discrimination. And again, I think that's really unhealthy if they kind of do that sort of stuff. So I wanted to take a more of a positive spin on it and have a look at what you can do to face that. I feel like I've got a question, right? Oh no, so I can see in the chat here. So it's right. So next, how do we overcome adversity? Have role models. Do people know who this girl is? Does everyone know what she did and how she did it? Because I feel like, okay, she's not necessarily one of my role models, but I think she's an absolutely incredible person. So for those of you who don't know, this is the girl that basically got shot in her head at the age of 12 in Pakistan for speaking up and defending people. She's become like a human rights activist. Her name's Malala, and she thankfully got saved, and she got taken to QE hospital in Birmingham. So this is like, so I'm originally from Birmingham, and so I knew about it because my friends actually were part of like the operating team, and so she actually ended up going to one of my rival schools and everything like that. So I know I followed her quite a lot. She's like the youngest ever Nobel Peace Prize winner, right? You know, and what she's been through. She's probably discriminated for race, gender, religion, like everything. And, you know, and she literally got shot in the head. I can't believe it, like what she's been through and her treatment. Obviously, she can't go back to her own country. And but she's now set up like a whole fund, and she's, you know, running her own organization. She's inspiring girls from all over the world to speak up and have their voice and all that kind of stuff. Like, what she's only still 23 or something now. What she's achieved at such a young age is incredible. And I like to look at people like her who have faced an insane amount of adversity, and it also puts things into perspective. And because I think, like, sometimes when I'm having a crappy day, I'm like, oh my God, life's so tough. And then I think, okay, my life is not tough compared to what she's been through. And it does put things into perspective, and makes you dwell a lot less on the things that you think are a major thing, because we all have it where something happens and then it suddenly becomes like the worst thing in the world, and we really overplay it, but it's not necessarily that's the case. So have role models. I think that's really important. Think about who inspires you, who faces adversity, and how they deal with it. I think that's a really important thing. Focus on your goals. So this is it, like, have the finish line in mind. Forget what other people want or think of you. I know it's really difficult because it's very easy to take rejection so personally, and, you know, take criticism and that sort of stuff very personally. But know your goals, focus on them, and only go for them. Don't try to let other people put you off and turn you off your path. That's what you should be doing. But don't let emotions get you, because I definitely have I've done this so many times. Like, you have someone who's inappropriate, who's spoken to you in a bad way, and it riles you up, even though, you know, again, you're not the one who's done something wrong, it's them, but it really rubs you the wrong way, and you don't react properly. So when it first happens, you end up like being really emotional, and you try to answer an email with emotions running high, and it's never ever a good thing. So don't let emotions get you. Very much easier said than done, absolutely, for sure, but it's something that I would definitely say. Like, for example, I've had ridiculous emails come in, or phone calls come in. For example, I get, on a weekly basis, I still get office calls to the phone, and I answer, and they go, oh, can I speak to your boss? And I'm like, no, I'm the founder of the company. So I'm the one in charge of that. Oh, there must be a guy somewhere that we can speak to who's more senior than you. And I'm like, no, if you want to chat to me, I can do my best to answer your questions. They're like, oh no, it's quite technical, you won't know the answer. And you get that sort of stuff, and it really, really bugs me. And just consistently stuff like that. I had a ridiculous one not so long ago. I actually tried to find a contractor to help us out with a project when we were really swamped, and you know, we spoke on the phone a lot, we emailed, and then he was about to sign our contractor agreement, and then he turned around and said to me, oh, I'm really sorry, but I didn't realize that you were black, so is it okay if I get paid everything up front, just because, you know? That's what he said. Just was like, and I didn't honestly know how to respond to that. And like, usually as well, racism is a silent thing. Like, you don't usually get people who are that like open about it. And that's the thing, like that's why it's harder to deal with a lot of discrimination, because people don't say it. People don't not hire you because you're in a wheelchair. They don't say that they're going to do that. They just don't do it. Like I said, those people who just don't even look at your CV because you've got an ethnic name, they don't write to you and go, sorry, you're the wrong ethnicity for this position. Like that's like, you know, that doesn't usually happen. So this was really strange for me. But I remember being really upset about it, even though I know that I didn't do anything wrong, and the guy's obviously just a bit of an idiot to have that narrow-minded thinking. But what I had to do was go away, cool off, leave my computer, and then come back with a fresh head and reply. So emotions are a very difficult thing. So another quote that I love, I put, love is the only force capable of transforming an enemy into a friend. So I don't know, you've probably heard the phrase like shower them with kindness. So like if you ever get people who are basically jerks to you and like treating you badly for whatever reason, again, that's the thing, you can never prove it, whatever they don't like you for, like shower them with kindness. Like I said, love is the only way of transforming that enemy into a friend. If you're ultra nice to them and you don't do anything wrong, they've got no reason not to like you. And that's the thing, in those situations, if you then start snapping back or you start treating them badly, then you're just as bad as them. They've got a right to kind of say, oh well, you did this. Whereas if you're consistently being treated badly and you've never done anything wrong, there's nothing that they can say against you. It's like, again, another amazing quote by a person who I definitely look up to is Michelle Obama. It's like, when they go low, we go high. Like that's her classic, and it's a brilliant quote. So, you know, if they start sinking, then go high. And a bit of a fun one, so the ultimate strength and diversity. I'm a bit of a Marvel and DC fan, so this is the DC crossover for those who don't know, but I put, this is the ultimate strength and diversity. So each of these guys came together as a weird kind of mix. And again, this is another interesting thing, because I think these were one of the guys that first did the first LGBT superheroes. When that started happening, people didn't like it. In this team, I think there's at least 2 who are LGBT, obviously different races here, and yeah, different genders, and like, yeah, you've got like Supergirl's obviously super fast as well, and it's just, I just think it's, even though it's fictional, which I'm well aware that it's fictional, I'd like to hope that there are superhero teams out there, and I like to think that some of the agencies that we are part of that are part of our community are like the ultimate team up, the DC crossover, who, you know, that's what I feel like with agency nomics, right? That's what it is. Like, so you've got Brightful and you know, all the other team in agency nomics and Complex Creative. When we come together, we're like the DC crossover that has the diverse teams and can battle anything. So, you know, this is always a crossover episode between 4 shows. Is it 4 now? So you've got Legends of Tomorrow, Arrow, Flash, Supergirl 5, and Batwoman in the middle now. So they've got 5 shows. It's like having 5 agencies bringing all their strengths together to battle anyone, and no matter what happens, they can overcome any adversity. So I like to think of that in the agency world. So I think there's years ago, lots of people used to see another agency as a competitor. Oh, they do exactly what you do. Or you probably shouldn't talk to each other. Oh my God, it's like competition. And that's what people used to think. And I think it's such a naive and narrow like mindset. If you ask any agency owners, most of their work probably comes from other agencies, like the direct partnerships that you have with them. And it's just a beautiful thing. You can help your clients much better, because if you niche in something, another agency will niche in that, and then you have experts in both fields and capabilities to be able to do the best job. So that's how I see our communities, as like the best, what they call the best team up ever. So that's what I think. That's me, and that's my presentation, and yeah, all done.
So Sabrina's going to ask us to now break into some breakout rooms, and she's going to join us in each of these rooms. And the question that she wants to pose to us, there are going to be 2 questions for us to explore, which is, you know, when have we felt that we've been in a position of adversity? When do we feel like we've been challenged? And you know, this is a safe environment to sort of share. Don't share anything you don't necessarily want to, but just the only way that we can to really truly understand this topic is if we can share from our learnt experience. So there's going to be two questions we're going to ask. We're going to be one, what has our learnt experience told us about the adversity and how we can overcome them? And the second question we're going to ask is, what in your learnt experience has told you and has shown you that working in teams with diverse backgrounds has actually turned out to a better outcome? So how has your learnt experience shown you that there is true strength in diversity? But why don't we just break into rooms? Dan Benham is going to kindly put us into two rooms. And we just asked you to share openly if anything that Sabrina has said today that's worthy of your comment. Feel free to. It'll be like 10 minutes, and then we'll regroup. We'll have a quick catch up, and then we'll jump into that next question. And at the end, we're going to have a quick Q&A, and then we'll have a wrap up. And then hopefully that would have been an inspiring evening for us to really engage with these topics. So the first question that we want to ask is, where have you experienced, in your learnt experience, a time of adversity and challenge, and how have you overcome it? Well, thank you. That was a really fascinating discussion. I don't know how the other room team went, but we had a really, really interesting discussion about the nature of neurodiversity and the challenges of all types of discrimination, and an open discussion about white privilege and also privilege in any context, particularly around wherever there is social injustice, there is discrimination. So it was a fascinating discussion. I know we're mindful of time, but if it's okay, we're going to split into a new set of group. It'll be randomly allocated. This time, just want to talk about genuine learnt experience, whether you've been at university, when you've worked on a gig, where you've worked on a team, where you can genuinely say that you got to a better outcome because you work with people with a different perspective, and how different learnt experiences creates a better outcome, and how there is genuine strength and diversity. So let's just split up into a group again and talk about the projects that you've seen it work, and what were the key fundamentals in that. Okay, should we go into another room?
Okay, let's go.
Well, we just had a fantastic conversation all about strength and diversity. How was room 2? Was that good?
Very good.
Wonderful. So I'm mindful of time. Sorry, we've run over a little bit, but I think that having an open discussion about these topics, this is what matters. So as we just said in the last call, is the statistics we started with, which is back in 2008, which is changing over time. Those shocking statistics with only 12% in the design industry coming from BAME and diverse backgrounds. We talked about kind of the gender split between male and female. We talked about people in leadership positions. This is something that is going to have needs to have a generational change, but it won't just happen organically by its own. It's a conversation that needs active advocates. It needs champions for this change. And if there's one thing that we want for you to take from this conversation, is you all have amazingly stellar and exciting careers in digital and creative. But please, please, please be the active advocate. Genuinely, my learnt experience is that better outcomes come from actively seeking diverse points of view and diverse perspectives. And if you can work with people from whatever diverse perspective that might be, as we say, it could be neurodiverse, it could be racially diverse, it could be age diverse, it could be sexual orientation diversity, it could be any able-bodied diversity, whatever it might be. Everyone has different. Everyone has different perspectives that they can bring to it. And if, as we talked about it, it's like a wall of Tetris. If you can bring together different shapes and different learns of experiences, you'll build a real strength in your teams, in your work, in your outcome, which is where the real strength and diversity comes in. Does anyone have any burning question for Sabrina? Because I think we're close to wrapping up. But Dan,
I do have a question. So you were saying about that story with the contractor who wanted to be paid up front. How did you resolve that situation? And did you work with them, or what was the outcome?
Absolutely did not work with them. I mean, I have this issue now, like even with any sort of trust, if there's not trust there, you don't want to work with them. It goes both ways. You know, if they don't feel comfortable working with me, I don't want them to work with me. You want a good relationship. I politely replied something quite diplomatically, like saying, didn't even address the issue because I thought it wasn't even worth. So I said, like, dear so-and-so, I'm sorry, it's not our company policy to do that. I wish you the best of luck. That's it. That's all I did, because I was like, I'm not gonna go and say that's inappropriate, like, blah. And I just thought it's not worth having that conversation, because if he's bold enough to come out and say something like that to me, then there's no getting through to the guy. So I didn't reply for about 6 hours. Though. I went away and it was just sort of like, can't deal with this right now. And then just came back to it much later, and then just wrote, sorry, it's not a company policy to pay up front. I wish you the best of luck. That's it. And never heard from him again.
Sabrina, you touched on this point about sometimes you can get overwhelmed with emotions at times and things like that. So what would you just say to anybody who is feeling a bit overwhelmed by the challenge of COVID at the moment and kind of thinking about their future? You know, it is sort of quite sort of concerning times, but there is hope on the horizon. What is any parting words of wisdom you can share with everyone?
A deep question. It is tough. I think that's the thing to realize. It is really tough out there. Whatever you're thinking, like if you're struggling in whatever shape or form, don't be ashamed about it, because everyone is struggling in some way. And like, I feel like as well, people talk about students and they don't get, like, you know, students, it's not a big deal. But sorry, student life was like some of the best years of my life. If I was stuck indoors right now, I'd be pretty gutted and I wouldn't be taking it very well. So don't underestimate your problems. Don't keep them in, is what I'd say, because I think you don't realize what it's like. Speak to someone. But yeah, the thing to remember is that everyone's going through this together, and it's a very difficult time. But like we're saying, strength and diversity. So stick together. Find the people who are positive, because you don't want to be around negativity as well, because that just brings you down. Don't be around other people who've got this negative outlook. Oh, COVID, it's ruining things. No, see this time, like be around people who think, right, okay, so this is a good opportunity to stay in and save money. Like, at least I'm building up for my future. And, I've suddenly got so much extra time for self-improvement, self-development. At the end of this, when everything goes back to normal, I'll be way ahead of the curve, a lot more extra knowledge, a lot more money in the bank. I'm in a better position to actually smash those goals in 2022, for example. So be around those sort of people who inspire you, who have a positive outlook. We said in the other group, like, turn the worst possible thing into the best possible thing. And because being around those people inspire you to achieve great things rather than bring you down. That's what I'd say.
Well said. Does anyone else have any final questions before we wrap up?
Yes. You were talking about icons earlier. Who is yours and why?
I think I mentioned Michelle Obama. She's definitely one of them. I guess I have lots of little ones for different reasons. So, like, obviously Malala, who I mentioned, in herself, she's fantastic what she's achieved. I've loads of male icons. I think in the grand scheme of things, it would be Oprah Winfrey, just because she's probably the most successful businesswoman of all time. She's obviously Black and female. She started doing all that stuff when the world was a lot more racist and a lot more prejudice. And her philanthropy, that's also a huge thing for me. It's the fact that she's realized that she's done all this and the greatness, and she's got all this wealth, and she wants to do what she can to give back. And so her values really ring true with me. And so for me, she's a massive icon. And yeah, that would be my dream, I guess, to meet her. And yeah. Yeah.
So do you have any thoughts or words for those who are under the belief that because, for instance, say race relations, age, gender issues, and the rest, obviously I make up one of the biggest statistics within the design industry of being a straight white dude. What is your thoughts, words, opinions on those who think that they shouldn't be an ambassador for diversity because those issues, they don't think that they would make a good ambassador because they don't represent those issues, or they don't think that they're a good representative of a demographic that is affected by adversity?
I think it's almost the opposite. I feel like the straight white dude, as you just said, could probably be one of the biggest ambassadors for change, because if you look at some of like, take slavery back in the day, if it wasn't for the rich white guys who were campaigning for them, saying it was wrong, it wouldn't have been abolished. Like, and sadly, it takes those people to talk up for other people to listen, which is really bad again in itself. But without people who are in the normal categories, which people consider, people wouldn't listen to them. Like say, all the LGBT bashers, which are out there, which is sick. It's always the straight people at the front going, no, this is not how they should be treated, blah, blah. And again, while it's a little bit wrong, I think that if you believe in something, if you believe something's wrong, or again, believe something's right, stand up for what you believe in and be a voice, regardless of who you are. And again, it's that diversity. If we then only embrace the BAME community, then the straight white dudes will be the minority, and it's just as bad. So like, you can't do that same thing as well. I don't even believe in positive discrimination. I believe in like equality and doing everything for everyone. So that's the thing. So regardless of what demographics you fit into, if you believe in something and you want to help, then go help. That's what I'd say.
Well said. Well said. Real equality is a world where meritocracy, where people rise on their talents based on a fair playing field. And so everyone has a place, everyone has a role, and everyone can bring their talents to the fore. I'm going to, if it's okay, because we've run over and I don't want these things to run too far over, you're more than welcome if you want to send some questions, we can send it to Sabrina. Can I just ask you to just do a kind of virtual round of applause for Sabrina? I think that was a fantastic conversation. Really appreciate it. One other question. Can I just ask you to wave to the camera so that we can have an event photo? Then I know that the marketing team will want to have this. And thank you very much. And let's just do one more, because I'll just do it on the one side. So just one more, because okay. 3, 2, 1. Thank you very much. Well, wonderful. We'll let you know about our next event. Our next event is going to be talking about personal branding. We hope it's going to be early next month. Please look out for our first Friday social, which is going to be the next month, and we'll publicize further events coming up on account management and other things. But for the meantime, thank you very much indeed, Sabrina. We really, really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, everyone, for taking this subject matter seriously.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.